That's 5 past. Fiona, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, I think we're ready to go then. Good.
Yes.
So I am going to take over and present.
And if you can just join the presentation.
So good evening, everybody. Fiona here. I am going to start by introducing my colleagues. Our presenters tonight, we've already heard from our senior tutors, Mark and Tony. Thanks very much. They have done a lot of work in setting all this up. My fellow presenters tonight are Lucinda Arthur. Lucinda works in Aberdeen at St Margaret's School for Girls. And Lucinda and I met on the advanced higher marking. And Lucinda also marks at higher level.
Yes.
And my other colleague is Conor O'Toole, who works at Braidhurst. And Conor, you're a higher marker, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
You don't fancy stepping over to the dark side and joining us on the advanced higher project? No?
I'm still happy to stick for higher at the moment.
Because I see they're still recruiting for advanced higher. So anyone else out there, feel free.
Possibility might be there, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, Lucinda and I haven't looked back, have we?
No.
And Tony as well, of course. So good evening, everybody. It's great to have you all online with us. We hope that you'll get some valuable ideas from this and perhaps a little bit of insight. We are certainly looking for reactions from yourselves, and we're looking for any hints, things that you use with your pupils. The slides from this Miro will be available to everybody. They'll be shared along with the comments and the interactive tasks we've got set up. So tonight we are going to be online on Miro until approximately 8:30, and then after that feel free to stay online and chat with us, and I'm sure there might be other points that come up that we want to discuss. So without further ado, I am going to take us over to a little bit of sort of housekeeping in terms of Miro. Now, you should all be hopefully able to follow me as I change our slides here. However, you can all navigate away from the slide that I'm presenting, and feel free to do that. And then you should be able to navigate back and join me again. A little bit of sort of housekeeping in terms of the cursors on the slides on the, what was it, right and left? Let me see, on the left-hand side. What you can't see, because I've got camera on, is I'm holding my left hand up as I say this and making an L, just like I do when I'm at the board. We have the cursor part in pink there, and it's sort of cursor etiquette. It's just to park your cursor on there if you can, because I know it can be a bit distracting, and certainly the first time I went on Miro, I found it quite overwhelming with everybody's cursors flying around. You can also turn cursors off, by the way, as well, which is sometimes quite helpful. So we've got our cursor park there. We are on Miro board. The Google chat will stay open, and Tony and Mark are going to be monitoring that for anybody whose, for instance, internet goes down or has a problem and then has to rejoin us. And you can also be on the Miro chat. You can access Miro chat from the top of the Miro boards, from the top of your screen. I think there's I can't see it while I'm presenting, but there's a double chevron pointing down. And if you click on that, I believe you can get into Miro chat.
Yes, that's right. So the double chevron is just over here. It looks like that, and it's just right at the top on the menu.
So again, feel free to post in that as we go along. We will be monitoring it and keeping an eye on that as well. But there is quite a lot of opportunity for interactivity, so we hope that will work out well for us. I think that is just about everything in terms of our Miro housekeeping. I use my arrow keys for navigating around and my mouse for zooming in and out. I find that quite good. Okay, so if we can just move over our tutors, our timeline for tonight up until 8:30. And first thing, interactive. It would be great if you could all say hello here. So on this slide, we've got some post-it notes.
And also, if you can just use the reactions at the bottom, just to ensure that everyone knows how to use them. So thank you. That's great.
If you agree or you're happy with it, great to see the thumbs up or the heart. If there's something you're not sure about, then potentially, well, obviously use one of the other ones. And if there's something that you really disagree with or think, when we're coming to look at good and bad type answers, then we quite like the skull, and we also like the one with the head exploding, the sort of fire one as well.
That's right. And if you want to type into the Miro board, just double click, and you should be able to type into any of these sticky notes. Hello, hi everyone. Good. You can also try to change the color of the sticky notes, because we will be using those as well. So there's a menu that appears. It's white. It's a little circle, so it might be difficult to see. So if you click on the fill color, you should be able to change the color of the sticky notes. Well done.
Okay. So, hi everybody. Good to see lots of post-its going up there. Great to have so many people on board for this. While we're just finishing off on that, I'll just mention that this is the first in a series of workshops that we're going to be doing. Our team is concentrating on the software design and development, but our fellow tutors will be working on websites and on databases. So feel free to dip into theirs as well. Obviously, we'd like you to stick with our series on software development, but you're not confined for that.
Okay, awesome.
Everybody's had the chance. I am going to hand over to you, Lucinda, so that you can take it from here if you're happy with that.
Sorry, Fiona.
Yes.
Okay, do you want me to present? Yes?
Sure. I think
Okay.
we've all had the chance to post something on our post-it notes.
Okay, I think you want to hand over to Connor.
Yeah, I was going to say, listen, if you want to take over, absolutely fine.
There we are. I'm just giving Lucinda the biggest panic and poor Connor. Sorry about that, Connor. You're sitting
That's
there.
okay, that's all right.
Honestly, thought I was
Hey,
gonna
you
lose
always
it.
knew there was a chance I was going to go off script, didn't you? I mean, you knew that was a possibility. Okay, Lucinda,
So if you can hand over to Connor, that would be great.
I'm taking it back from you.
That's
Connor,
great.
how about I pass this one over to you, Connor?
Yeah, why not?
There you
Why
go.
not? Hi everyone, how we doing?
There you go.
So I'm going to try and move on just a slide for us just now. I've just moved on one too many there. So ideally for this evening, what we're wanting to try and do, the main reason why we're having this meeting, we're wanting to try and split it up into what's the meeting for, why are we having it, and then finally, how are we going to do something about it as well. So this evening, our tutorial is going to be focusing, in terms of the what, we are focusing on the analysis and evaluation. So that's going to be the beginning of the software development process, and it's also going to be the end of it as well. And I think with software development, we probably sometimes get a wee bit too focused on the implementation part. And often when it comes to the analysis and the evaluation stages, sometimes we can tend to ignore them a bit, and there's still plenty sort of marks available within your analysis and your evaluation.
Absolutely, and you'll probably see this yourself, Connor, in Mark and Hire. Generally, we see a lot of great coders who make a brilliant job of the implementation stage and get, top marks for that. But quite often we see that they're falling down on the analysis stage and the evaluation stage, and can be losing a lot of marks on that.
Yeah, so in terms of the why, that leads us on to that. If we're producing such good coders, then we really need to try and think about, well, why do we need to learn about analysis and evaluation?
Absolutely. I know certainly I've just started this with my third years on the analysis and really getting drilled into it. And N5, we need to drum into them the skill of describing exactly what the program or the database or website must do to solve the problem, because it's so important to kick off with that.
Yeah, there's parallels, with software, and then also with the database and web as well in terms of analysis. But it's probably a skill that pupils are going to develop at Hire, and then our hope is advanced Hire and even beyond that as well. They're going to need to be able to sort of identify and tease apart a problem to look at the requirements, and then they're going to have to successfully design it and then implement it and then also test it as well. So if they're going into, let's say, a real world development team, then it's going to consist of your analysts, it's going to consist of designers, coders and testers, and each one of them is going to work independently. So we really need to have a good analysis that's going to give a clear indication of the requirements. And if we've got that, then that's going to ensure that the final product is going to be exactly what our client requires.
Absolutely. I was talking about this to the third years this afternoon, because I used to work in IT when I was industry, and I was an analyst. And talking about that, explaining the importance of identifying exactly what the software is to do, and explaining that's why we start the whole process by focusing on that with them. Of course, they always get into, but Miss, do we really need to do this in the future? We'll just be able to use something like ChatGPT to do it all, and we can already get code from that. And we're talking about the fact that probably the coding, the implementation part of it will, there's a lot of potential there for the human part of it to be reduced, but we're still always, the most important part is that we're going to have to go in and identify exactly what it is that our clients want at the beginning, or exactly what we have to do to solve a problem. And that's the human skill in there, and extracting that and teasing it out and then getting it down on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we're going back to that sort of real world scenario, you're wanting your designers to be able to pick up the analysis, and they should be able to design a solution, a working solution. And it would probably be the same with the coders. They can then implement those designs. The testers would be able to test the functions, and then finally you're evaluating it at the end.
Well, that's right. I know when we're looking at the advanced Hire projects, we like to see them getting off to a good start with really clear and well-defined end user and functional requirements, because that then becomes good code, and it follows through, and that then becomes the basis for their evaluation, and a very thorough evaluation at that. And we quite often talk about this becoming the golden thread that goes right the way through the project, and it being so important because that is the thread, the continuity that goes through the project.
Aye, absolutely. And And just finally, that's obviously going to lead us on to the how part. So how we're going to examine these stages tonight?
Yeah, we're going to work from, well, primarily we're focusing here on N5 and on higher. We're going to start with looking at the analysis for both of those levels, and then we'll have some discussion. And we'd like to get you guys posting plenty of comments and some feedback and maybe questions. And then when we've done that, we'll move on to look at the evaluation for N5 and for higher.
And we are going to hopefully get our participants to join in with it as well. We'll give you the opportunity to try and provide provide us with some feedback, and we'll do that maybe in the form of post-it notes, and we'll maybe even look at those icons and the reactions as well, so that we can maybe try and identify from previous coursework tasks what would we think would be sort of good and bad answers.
Absolutely, and of course we've got the Miro chat that we can all post to as well, and get some comments going in there, some discussion.
Yeah, so I'm just going to move on to the next slide, and this will be the first opportunity for us to try and give a wee bit of feedback for all the participants. So you'll see that we've got at the left-hand side here, we've got our inputs, our processes and our outputs, and we've got 2 rows for each different one. We've got National 5 and we've also got higher. So if you wouldn't mind, if you only need to click on from one of these post-it notes, we're not looking for one for each different part in terms of input, process and output. Oops, someone's moving that on there. Move that across there. So if you wouldn't mind just taking one of these post-it notes here and just trying to write maybe a short definition of what you think an input, a process or an output would be. Sorry, I'm not too sure why that keeps skipping ahead there. There we go. So I can see quite a lot of people are typing up the responses just now, I think. And I'll give you just a couple of moments and we'll evaluate what we've got.
Okay, yeah, we've got a lot coming in, Connor.
Yeah, we've got some, so looking at the inputs for National 5, seeing sort of what the user enters, the data that's entered by the user into the program. Yeah, they sort of seem, there's some good points.
Yeah,
and then the key difference,
and
we can see sort of the key difference that we're looking at. Then maybe in terms of higher is where we're getting those inputs, but not just in terms of the user typing it in, we're looking at the file as well, and that seems to be one of the common ones. Yeah, that's good to see. And it's kind of the same with output as well. So again, looking for the outputs for NAT5, what information is going to be displayed, and then at higher, anything displayed on screen or written again to a file. That seems to be the key difference between NAT5 and higher.
Absolutely, that's a differentiator, isn't it, on there?
Yeah, and one of the good ones there.
On processes then.
Processes, one of the good ones there for the higher, the standard algorithms that the program will use. So those 4 standard algorithms are going to be crucial, and that's going to be something throughout this tutorial that we're going to highlight. So you'll see that pop up for the higher. And again, for NAT5, we're looking at maybe the data and calculations or conditions to transform that data. How to get from the input to the output. Yeah, these are sort of
doing the verbs, the doing words.
That's and that's something we're going to be looking at as well. All right. I'll just give a couple of wee moments because I think there's 1 or 2 people that are still highlighted, and then we'll move on just in the next minute or so. But yeah, thank you for your feedback. We can also use the reactions as well just later on.
Yeah, that looks good.
So Fiona, what I'll do just now is I'll hand across to you just so that you can continue with the next slide, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
There we go.
And as we say, well, this will all be saved and shared with you, so we'll be able to see all this.
Yeah, this will be one of the handouts, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, happy to move on. Lucinda, are you posting something on there, or you all good? Right, Andrew, you okay? Okay. Okay, so oh, somebody's wanting to join. Okay. All right, so let's move on to our next slide. And we are going to, as we said, we're going to drill down into the coursework tasks. We're looking at that for our analysis in particular. So we're going to drill down into the coursework tasks, and let's have a look at what we can learn from the course reports, looking at the feedback from the markers, so as we can see the patterns that are emerging, what pupils have done well and where they're losing marks, so that we can help them to, you know, to fix that and not lose these marks on their analysis stage. So we're going to move on to slide 2A to see how analysis builds through, or we're on slide 2A. So at N5 level, we look at our very simple input processes and outputs. And we split it into that. We get them to describe the problem, what the program's to do, and hone in on inputs, processes, and outputs. And as you'll see in a minute when we look at this, this comes up regularly, you know, every year in some format or another. At higher level, we of course expect them to get into more detail, and we're looking at higher for them to identify the purpose, the scope and boundaries. And I know certainly from my own experience, my pupils sometimes struggle a bit with scope and boundaries. The idea that scope's what's included and boundaries is on the verges of what's excluded. And looking at the functional requirements, which again is just in more detail to N5. When we get to our advanced higher, although we're not looking at that in detail tonight, when we go to advanced higher and we're marking projects, then we are looking at, we're expecting a full requirement specification, end user and functional requirements from them. And as we said, that becomes a sort of golden thread, that becomes their design, their coding and their evaluation.
Aye, so just looking as expected, your detail's going to get more increased as the levels go on. So higher's more detailed than that 5, same as advanced higher. Just to show that additional detail just at each different level as well. So as our problems are going to become more complicated, you're going to require the more detail. So in terms of higher, you've got those scope and boundaries, but at advanced higher, that's when you're really wanting to write very, very specific end user and functional requirements that's going to clearly describe something that an advanced higher level project would do.
Absolutely. So let's move on to our next slide here. And this is focusing on the analysis in the N5 coursework. And we've looked at it going back to the 2019 project. And as you can see here, 2019, they were asked to complete missing input, process and output. Didn't appear in 2020. In 2021, they were to complete the analysis identifying the missing inputs. There was nothing in 22 or 23, but given that, it may well be that it will be back in for the next coursework.
Yeah, so it's something that's not always asked, but again, given that we've had maybe the 2-year gap, it's probably something that we might be able to expect in the forthcoming coursework. But basically at National 5 level, what we're wanting the pupils to be able to do is they're going to be reading a problem that they're unfamiliar with, and what we're looking for them to do is just extract the key information just about inputs, processes and outputs.
Absolutely. And looking at it, we want to develop those analysis skills with our pupils in the N5 classes.
Yeah, and again, in terms of us like trying to get our pupils to develop those skills, it's probably just going to be a case of practice and experience. You know, we'll have these two coursework tasks, 2019 and 21, that we can use to sort of give them an indication. It maybe allow us to sort of build up similar examples that we can use for our pupils. But it's just to try and give them that skill and identifying what's going on within a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I do quite like to use the sort of nouns and verbs idea, just to try and make it as hopefully simple as possible. To explain that the inputs and outputs can be the nouns. You know, things like what are you keying in? You're keying in maybe first name, surname, the number of points, the number of marks, the height, the score in something. What are you getting as outputs? You're getting the average or the total. And when we're thinking about processes, thinking about the things that are being done, what's happening, what's going on. Is it a calculation? Is it a decision? Is it a repetition in terms of a loop? What are the verbs? What's happening?
I have probably found that maybe some of my pupils, maybe the ones that are probably like the best coders, they'll maybe give too much detail within the process. It could maybe even lead to things like the pupils themselves actually writing out pseudocode or code for the processes. But it's important that we try and make sort of the distinction between the analysis and the design part as well. So the analysis, what we're focusing on this evening, is what the program's going to do. And sometimes our pupils can get confused with the designing part of it, which is how the program's going to do it.
Yeah, they just get down into too much level of detail at that point.
Yeah, I think so. Right, so can you hand that off to me?
I am going to hand that over to you, Connor. So
Thank you.
the next one.
I'm just going to move on to slide 2C, and then eventually we'll move on to 2D as well. But as you can see here, comparing analysis from higher to National 5, every single year, something about analysis has appeared for the last 5 years within the higher coursework. So it is a common question, and it's one that we would expect to appear in the forthcoming coursework this year as well.
Absolutely. As we can see, it adds extra detail, and it does present more challenge to the candidates. When we're marking the coursework and the course reports, we see that candidates can struggle sometimes, particularly when they get to the differentiation between boundaries and assumptions. I know I already said that my guys do struggle a bit between scope and boundaries as well, but then they get into boundaries, and as we can see in 2022, the wording in that one was that they were to state two assumptions.
Yeah, so probably the most common tasks that we're going to have in terms of the higher coursework for analysis is probably going to be identifying your processes and then stating your boundaries. I think they're going to be the most common.
Absolutely. If we move on to the next slide, Connor,
yeah,
then we've got some key approaches that we've put together on this one to try and help to answer these ones.
Yeah, just looking at these sort of post-it notes that we've got here up at the top, when we're looking at inputs at higher level, and it's something that I'd seen from the post-it notes with the feedback, which was quite good, we're also aware of it, is that at higher level, we're looking at where the data's coming from, because candidates, they've now got the option for reading from a file, and perhaps also from the keyboard. So it's either the file or the user's going to be inserting it, but that's your main difference for the input part, first of all.
Absolutely. And quite often some of them can miss out on being specific about the source of the input, that they're not specifying that. And just as at N5, they need to be specific about exactly what data is being entered. So sometimes they'll simply state, that data's being read from a file, They don't tell us the file, and they don't tell us what the data is. Is it first name, surname, test mark? What is it?
Yeah, aye, that's crucial for us. They need to be able to state that. And if we're looking at the processes as well, again, something that would probably be highlighted from that earlier feedback. Similar to Nat5, but they've got to be able to tell us this time the algorithm that's going to be used. So shouldn't be an input or output, but they've got to tell us what algorithm is going to be used within this part of the analysis. So it could be 1, it could be 2, but they've got to identify what algorithm's being used.
Absolutely. And something that we should maybe just draw attention to is sometimes we find that pupils are talking about file output in terms of a process that's going on. And it's important that they recognise that that's not actually the case. They've also got to focus on the fact that they do have more standard algorithms that they're familiar with. And so, we say to them, think of your standard algorithm, state which one you're going to use, and remember, don't state the output, writing to a file. That is not a process.
Just adding on to that, there will probably be other things as well, like maybe the extra predefined functions that are found in Hire. There might be mod that's required to be identified, and there might also be possibilities like string handling operations as well. So they might be appearing.
Yeah, absolutely, Connor. It's worth mentioning to candidates that they should describe the process in terms of what operations need to be carried out on the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just moving on to those outputs then. So Hire, the only additional, kind of similar to the inputs, is not in terms of where it's coming from, but that ability to write to a file. So sort of the opposite direction this time, but again, that file's the additional one that goes in there.
Yeah, exactly. This is the output from the processes, and again, they should be specific about what they're writing to the file. Although it's a design consideration, pupils can sometimes they really want to state when a subroutine writes to a file, and they want to also show that in their data flow. And you maybe find this when you're looking at data flow questions, that because they're conscious of input, process, output, they still think of that in terms when they're doing data flow theory. And not only do they think sometimes of data flow being reading from a file as being your input, and so that becomes a data flow, but also the writing the output to a file, and they put that down as data flow coming out. And it's keep an eye out for that, I would say, because I know to my guys, that generally takes them just a little bit of a reminder.
Yeah, data flow is going to be one of the ones that we're going to cover in one of the follow-up tutorials, but that's probably one of the ones that we'll be looking to highlight. In terms of analysis, one of the other features we've got there at Hire is going to be the boundaries.
Yeah, as we said, was it the 2022 one where instead of the term of asking about boundaries, it was assumptions that was asked for, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, the 2022 one. Yeah, you're right with that. So probably a good way to describe boundaries is that they are sort of any decisions you can make about the data, a problem that's going to dictate how you're going to design your solution. Yeah.
Sometimes, although I drum into them the fact that they've to look at the question stem and they've to use that, sometimes I find that they're just restating the information that they've been given in the STEM. And instead, what we're wanting them to look at is to absolutely look at the scenario and think about what assumptions that they can make from the problem, from what they've been given.
Aye, that's a good point. So is there maybe an example that you could sort of highlight for everybody to sort of understand that?
Well, it could be, for instance, to describe the data type that might need to be used.
Mhm.
So the question scenario will talk about, golf scores or ages or marks or whatever, or characters that have been to key in for a password or whatever. So it could be down to something fairly straightforward as data type, or it could be that they're looking at the formatting of the data that they're reading in. So, for instance, the formatting of a file that they're reading from, that it's a comma separated file, that each row is a complete set of data.
Aye. Again, probably the file structure is probably going to be an important boundary, because the pupil's got to design a particular piece of code that's going to read in the file, but it's going to be within a particular order as well. So shortly we're going to be able to show you a wee example of that as well.
Yeah, where it makes a key difference, doesn't it? An example we've got in terms of how they've set it up and what they're reading in. Another thing could be fairly straightforward in this, that is the range of data that they're going to be working with. So they'll be making an assumption in terms of maybe the size of the array that they're going to use. And they can be stating that. Yeah,
that's one of the things I always try and mention to pupils as well whenever they're looking for those sort of boundaries, is to look at any sort of sizes that are indicated maybe within the question stem, because it could be something, if I'm trying to think back from previous coursework tasks, I think there's maybe one where it's saying, like, if a reading is taken over a specific period of time, that would maybe be something for you to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, and we can open this up later to everybody else, in terms of candidates, pupils writing boundaries to specify what the programme won't do? So coming back to this, the two sides of the coin kind of idea.
Probably best for the pupils maybe not to write a list of tasks that the programme won't do. It's maybe best to try and restrict answers to the details that they can identify within the question stem. So as I was saying there, maybe a good tip to look for would be numbers.
Yeah, look out for the number of items on the list or in the file, the number of times that something's to be done, the number of the repetitions for a loop, for instance, the number of outputs that are required.
I think that's probably a better strategy than maybe just going.
Otherwise, they could get into all sorts of lists, couldn't they, of things that are not to be done. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe just stick with that instead of going beyond what the SQA have issued, maybe like within a specific task or a specific question. To stick with the information they're given, basically. Yeah, pretty much. So in terms of analysis, that's what we're wanting to try and cover for just now. So I'll look at maybe this for another opportunity for us to try and get a bit more feedback. So basically just maybe from that there, if we can do the same as before, Fiona. Absolutely. Let's grab a post-it note and give us some feedback. If we've got comments, if you've got points you'd like to raise, maybe things that you think that we've not spoken about or that we need further information on. Let's go for it. Are we colour coding these ones as well? I think it would maybe be good, like if there's maybe any concerns, maybe questions as well, if you would maybe want to try and put your post-it note to be read. But even if you're maybe sharing like the way that Fiona and I were speaking there about maybe tips that we would look for in terms of how we can help pupils with the analysis part, how they can answer it, if there's any tips that you are aware of as well. Okay, so will there be explicit examples there? Well, we do have some explicit examples to come on to. Yeah, in terms of this evening, we're going to look over maybe a couple of previous coursework tasks. Yeah, of course, it's good having a discussion about it, but we really want to try and see how can we identify previous coursework tasks to help our pupils. Absolutely. Percentages are always a good one for boundaries. Yeah. anything with numbers, that's
Would you wait to teach analysis after implementation and hire? I think that's probably done at your, I would, from a personal perspective, I would do that at your own discretion. Sometimes it might be an idea if you've maybe got some excellent coders, if they're making the jump from National 5 to higher, if you're teaching the implementation part and they're successful at it, they might enjoy that boost, so that perhaps if they struggle with the analysis section, they might, if they're doing that straight away, maybe the analysis part would be, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, maybe something that like might give them a wee bit of a...
I have to hold my hands up and admit that's what I've done so far with my third years.
Aye.
I've got a third year class where I've got some boys in it who are, they enjoy coding a lot, and they struggle at times to engage in some of the other things, let's just say. So I have let them, where are we? We're almost in November. I have basically got tore into the coding, into the implementation with them, really to get them well engaged in this whole thing. And I'm only just recently feeding in the analysis side of things and the design side of things.
Yeah, because it gets to the point where as well, I know that we get the coursework task given out, and the first thing that we're doing is the analysis part, and then your implementation follows it. Sometimes we might even find that if they struggle with the analysis part, you'll see them struggling with implementation after it as well, the things that they're maybe good at. So again, it's at your discretion, but I think most people would maybe agree with you that maybe implementation taught first and then analysis maybe following after it. Just looking at one of those other post-it notes just up at the top there as well. Sorry, I'm having to look up. My eyesight's going here, sorry. Perhaps looking at good and bad answers to specific questions would frame this better. Yeah, that's something we're going to come on to later as well. We'll give everybody the opportunity. We'll have a bank of good and bad answers to specific tasks. And we'll give everybody the opportunity to try and identify what they think would be good and bad examples. So we'll have a look at that shortly as well.
Absolutely.
So I think I'm going to move on just now because I don't see any more typing ones at the moment. Up at the top here, sorry, is stating a suitable data type always an acceptable answer? So that would be one that one maybe. What would you say with that one there, Fiona? Is stating suitable data type
of our assumptions potentially?
I think that would be okay for a National 5 answer.
Yeah, absolutely. For higher, I think I would need to see more context for that one.
What I know from the higher, what I've been seeing so far is just to assume that the data that's entered is accurate. My kids keep reading that a lot.
Aye, yes. Accurate in terms of those assumptions, yeah. Like accuracy, that's one that we've noticed as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lucinda, am I okay to sort of allow you to take over just now?
Yeah,
is that all right?
absolutely. Just hand it over. I'm sure Fiona is excited about this now.
There was one more before we moved on. Did we talk about using
Sorry.
assumptions and boundaries interchangeably?
Where is that one, sorry?
That's in the second row along towards the end, Connor. Sorry, Lucinda.
Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely right. For hires, we are.
Aye, we've noticed that in previous coursework tasks, sometimes we've referred to it as assumptions, sometimes we've referred to it as boundaries as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and certainly I'm trying to be more explicit with them and explaining to be prepared for either maybe more of the assumptions, would you say, in the coursework task and more boundaries in the exam and the theory side?
Yeah, and the assumptions would allow you to form up the boundaries as well.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot, Connor, for handing over. Okay, so just to jump on there, we are going to move on to evaluation. So we're going to basically have a look through evolution of evaluation from National 5 to Advanced Higher. So on the National 5, obviously we have fitness for purpose, efficient use of constructs, robustness, readability, and higher, we also have fitness for purpose, efficient use of constructs, usability, maintainability, and robustness. The one that we've seen most often is maintainability. And obviously for advanced higher, again, fitness for purpose, maintainability, robustness, efficiency, and usability. So we're going to go through all these so you can see how they differ on each stage. So
yeah, because Lucinda, you know this as well as me. When we get to advanced higher, we notice that things like maintainability are not particularly well done sometimes.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Sometimes the pupils do give answers, but they're sort of half-baked, so they're usually not complete answers.
Yeah.
So the problem we see here with evaluation stage is where pupils give too many evaluations sometimes, and they lack detail. So they're half-baked. I mean, they start off writing it better, really, really well, and then they don't actually go into detail. And also, which is most important, they don't relate it to their actual coded solution.
Yes, they don't talk about their solution.
Yeah, that's right.
And they don't specify areas in their code, constructs in their code, subroutines at higher, of where they are demonstrating these things to show fitness for purpose. And really, we're trying to get them to realize that the key skill is to link it to their solution and to talk about it honestly, and not make claims that they haven't proved. So for instance, if something doesn't work and their testing shows that it doesn't work, don't then say, my solution's fit for purpose.
Yeah. I mean, even basically relating it to lines of code that they've actually implemented, that would be a great way to start. Another key idea is basically having appropriate answers at each level. So obviously, as you can see here, we have robustness or efficiency at all 3 levels. However, and this obviously usually needs guidance from teachers to ensure that pupils know not to write a National 5 level response for a higher level question or advanced higher project, because obviously that would not be a complete answer.
Yes, so for instance, at higher, we see them giving like an N5 response in terms of robustness, in terms of input validation, for instance.
Okay, so let's just move on to the next slide. So over here on slide 3B, we can see that what would be a suitable response for a National 5 student. So
yeah, we see if we look at it, that the question seems to come up every year, and every year we do notice from marking that marks are lost for the sort of same style of response.
That's right. So each year they might choose different aspects of evaluation, but obviously there's some key messages we can pull out by looking at these assignments. So just right now, I'd like you to really focus on the key messages on this slide. So identify efficiency or inefficiency in own program code and justify why. Why is it efficient? And relate it back to your program code.
Yeah, refer your own code, your own solution.
Yeah, that's right. Or fitness for purpose. So compare it to your solution, to the solution that the pupil has actually coded with their program analysis and expected output. or evaluation of readability, which must contain elements of evaluation rather than just simple statements.
Yes, because quite often we see that, don't we, that they just state, for instance, the example on this slide here, I have used white space, but they don't explain how that aids with readability.
Yeah, that's right. And also, which is really, really important as well, and I cannot stress this enough, it is important to be honest about the evaluation. So for example, do not say, oh yes, my code is fit for purpose, when most of the processes did not work. So if
Yeah,
if the candidate did not get it working, you should not say it is fit for purpose, and just be honest.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes we have seen, particularly that there's a deliberate part of an assessment, a coursework. There's part of it that is deliberately put as being not fit for purpose, and are expecting candidates to draw attention to that and comment on it.
Yeah, that's right. And for example, if we're looking at efficiency, it can be quite subtle to explain how some programming constructs are more efficient than others.
Yeah, because sometimes, again, the efficiency is one where they just want to make a statement rather than thinking about the work that the processor is doing in processing their code, or to think about the memory usage, or to think about file space. And it's about them relating it back to their knowledge of computer systems, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Also, for example, obviously we all teach our pupils to use efficient coding constructs. So for example, why are elifs and else statements better than separate if statements?
Yeah, and to think about it in terms of their processor, and to think about the work that the ALU is doing. So with elifs and elses, not Elsie, it makes me think of a person's name, sorry. As soon as a decision is made, the ALU will stop evaluating conditions. However, they should be explaining that if they use separate if statements, the ALU can end up doing lots of unnecessary comparisons, which inherently makes it inefficient.
Yeah, absolutely. So just going back to what I stated earlier under the key messages, justification is the most important bit on here. So you can't just say, I have used if-else statements and just leave it there. That's incomplete.
Yeah, they've got to justify or explain why that has been a good thing to do. It's the same really with the readability and robustness, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, rather than just stating, I have used meaningful variable names, that old chestnut, or I have used internal comments. They need to explain why our meaningful variable names help, why input validation makes their code more robust.
Yeah, that's right. Again, only say you have coded it. So only say that you have something if you have coded it. Okay, so
absolutely, the old one of, oh, I have used internal commentary to aid with readability, and I'll say, so have you really?
There's no comments in the code.
If you haven't used it, you can't write about it. Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on to evaluation at higher. So when we look at evaluation at higher, we need to ensure that the candidates are actually answering at higher level. As often, very, very often, we do see National 5 level responses at higher level.
Yeah, as you can see here, modularity features a lot in the assignment tasks, and it can be used in a number of different contexts. Obviously, modularity is new content at higher, so there is a focus then going to be on that, and it could be asked about with regards to maintainability, or maybe to efficiency, or to fitness of purpose for a specific function that they've written.
Yeah, that's right. So as we can see here over the previous 5 years, modularity is in almost every coursework, well, apart from 2020 where we had robustness. So obviously, as Fiona just said, we don't want to see lots of answers such as my program is maintainable as it uses internal commentary. That's basically just a half-baked answer. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. At higher, what would we make a good evaluative statement?
So if we look at modularity and how it increases maintainability, we would want candidates to say why modularity makes their program more maintainable to another developer. So we would like them to actually describe why their program uses modularity and makes it more maintainable and explain it to another developer.
Yeah, I mean, I notice sometimes that they're nearly there, but they end up just stating facts. So they'll say, oh, my program uses local variables, but they don't continue that through to the conclusion of explaining why that is good.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So, for example, it's important that pupils take their answer a stage further at higher level. So, for example, discuss how the use of local versus global variables would reduce the chances of a change adversely affecting another piece of code, or how, modularity helps maintainability, making it easier to debug and identify and isolate bugs, therefore reducing debugging time.
Absolutely. And that would read into if they were asked about efficiency. Again, at higher, would be expecting them to step up and move up from their N5 answers, and to talk about particular constructs such as arrays, and maybe talk about how they could, for instance, reuse their programs, how they could return different parameters for it or input different parameters to a subroutine.
Yeah, that's right. So we're just going to have some fun here on the next slide. So want to get
good. That's specific examples. This is what we wanted.
Yes, this is some specific examples. So we are going to start with National 5. So I'll just move this over here. And what I want you guys to do is vote if this is a good example for evaluation or a bad example. Again, you can use the thumbs up or the exploding head if you think this is a bad example. So my program is readable because it uses white space to highlight structures. Yes, see, yep. Most people think it's...
We like that, yeah. Some of us are loving it, great.
That's right.
Yep.
So just move that into good. All right, let's have a look at this one. My program is efficient because it uses if-else statement. Is this a good example? I hope I see lots of exploding heads. Yes, that's exactly what I was expecting. Absolutely, that's completely that's not a complete statement.
Yeah,
obviously we want them
why that helps with efficiency.
Yeah, we need the justification. Saying it enables quicker execution in the code. So let's have a look at the next one. My program is efficient because it uses arrays. Is this good? Yeah, no, yeah.
Not really, because
again, this is not
why, yeah.
It uses arrays to do what? To store, manipulate data, or it enhances or provides a structured way to store and manipulate data. So we want complete answers.
Exactly. So why an array would be better than, for instance, using separate variables?
Yeah, that's right. My program is not fit for purpose as it does not meet requirements. Most people think that, I mean, we kind of this is exactly what we thought. Some people thought it was a good example for National 5.
I wanted to see something more about the requirements there, but yeah.
I think this is what we talked about, referring it back to the solution and referring your answer, your evaluation answer, back to what you've coded and how is it not fit for purpose and what does it not meet. So
Yeah,
obviously this is still a little incomplete. So this over here. My program is fit for purpose because testing shows it does everything it was asked to. Is this, yeah, no, this is totally incomplete as well.
Yeah, yep. We need to know what.
Yes,
What
what
things
have you
are-
tested to show
Yes,
that
yes.
it does everything it was asked to? All right, let's move on to hires. So modularity makes my program more maintainable as it can be easier to locate errors.
Okay, generally the majority of us are
Yep,
liking
that's
that one. Yep.
All right, what about this one? Modularity makes my program more maintainable as my sub-programs can be edited independently. Yes.
Yep, we're liking that one.
Absolutely, that's a good one. I think we're all in sync here.
Yeah, we're all definitely all in sync on that one.
My program uses local variables. Yeah.
Very good.
So
Yes.
many exploding heads.
I like that skull as well. I'm going for a skull too.
And a skull. Yes, absolutely. My program is maintainable as it uses modularity. Yeah, this is incomplete as well.
Maybe I'll have a sad face this time. I don't know.
So we all obviously want more detail on that one. My program is maintainable as it uses internal commentary. No,
No.
this is bad as well. There's no justification. You haven't given a full justification for higher level or what's in.
Exactly. They're still thinking at N5 level on that
Yeah,
one.
that's
Yeah.
right. Mhm.
And they haven't even done it fully for an N5 answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's us just finished with evaluation just now. If you can again just grab a post-it note and just give us some feedback.
Yeah.
Have you got anything more to add? Any hints or tips that would be useful for everyone on evaluation?
Do you know, I'm going to try actually using some pre-filled out post-it notes with my classes and get them to come out and stick it up onto the board, a wee bit interactivity. I'll make it hard though, because I've got a very small classroom, so we could have chaos with them all walking about with these post-it notes.
If you've got any hints or you've got any concerns or questions on evaluation, set the post-it to red and just type in your question.
Okay, lots of people are look as if they're in the process of filling something out, Lucinda, which is good.
Yeah.
How much do you have to write for an evaluation when everything actually works?
Oh, if everything actually works, then you should have quite a lot to write on evaluation. Obviously, I mean, obviously, you could either write on modularity or you can write on efficiency or fit for purpose. So it just basically depends on how much detail you want to give based on your solution. For meaningful variable names, is it enough to say that they have used a meaningful identifier and give an example of it? At higher level, we will be expecting them to discuss their local and global variables. So, so obviously, you're talking about meaningful variable names. You also want to then, tie it in with, basically scope at high level. And that would be a better answer.
At N5, if we're thinking about the meaningful variable names, personally, I would like to see a wee bit of an explanation about why it's useful, just something very brief, to say. It's easier to understand what values we're working with here, or because I've given it a descriptive variable name. Evaluation is concrete, so it's easier to explain. Yeah, absolutely. Is AIDS maintainability alone an acceptable benefit of modularity? Without adding any other detail
Oh.
to it.
No, that's not acceptable because that's also a half-baked answer. It aids maintainability, but how does it aid maintainability? So pupils have to go into a bit more detail on that.
In terms of explaining that it is maintaining individual subroutines, individual modules,
Yeah, that's right.
without affecting the rest of the program, for instance, the rest of the code.
Yeah. Okay, have we gone through all of them, Fiona?
What you think and why you think it works for me.
What you think and why you think it works for me. Sorry, I'm not sure I understand that statement. Can you just, yes. If you can go into more detail, that would be great. Is this at a National 5 level?
I think I'm probably just trying to say that explanation works for them. That's okay. They
Oh,
agree with it. Just probably
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
highlighted in green, you know.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
okay. That's fine.
The important part is reminding the pupils they need to justify the evaluation. Absolutely.
That's right. Justify the evaluation and basically revert back, link it back to your solution. That would be a good way to go about it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You really very useful feedback, guys. So
Okay.
thanks for
Sorry,
getting
Richard, I was
involved.
looking at the one up at the top there.
Oh, we've missed one. Where is it?
Just near the beginning in the top row, it was quite small type, so I must admit I've got my face pressed up to my monitor here to read it. There was a marking instruction
Okay.
last year or the year before where it's fit for purpose because it meets all the above requirements.
Is this
Oh,
at
yeah,
National 5 level?
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, that's at National 5 level.
It meets all the above requirements and it got the marks. Okay.
So at National 5 level, but not at higher level. But obviously, there's no justification on there. I mean, we always want to ensure that our pupils are doing their best. So even if you've written that down, then it's always good to, you know, add a bit of justification on why it is fit for purpose.
Yeah, personally, I would always like them to be talking about the requirements and
Yeah,
referring specifically to individual requirements.
that's a good point. I don't know who this is. The problem I generally have is reminding pupils to say my problem is or isn't, never mind the explanation. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. With my pupils, I think I always advise them to, if they refer it back to the solution and justify it that way, then it should cover what they've done, especially at National 5 level. So the important part is to remind the pupils they need to obviously justify the evaluation.
Okay, so I think we've definitely covered all of them there, haven't we?
Yeah, has anyone got anything else to add? No?
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you for everybody for posting comments and giving us some feedback on it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to move on to previous coursework. Some of you would recognize this now. You can actually zoom in, so you can use your mouse to zoom in, or if you're on an iPad, you can just use your 2 fingers to zoom in. So a key to a pupil's ability to understand the problem is their ability to analyze the problem. Fiona and Connor, I was listening to you guys earlier, and I'm not sure what happened there.
Sorry, I've returned to you, Lucinda, and I've gone a bit adrift here.
Okay, that's fine. Is their ability to analyze the problem. Now, in the past, I have usually gone on to implementation, you know, because pupils always want to just go on to write some code. But for the past 2-3 years, I have actually sat with analysis and design quite a bit and just told people, forget about implementation, and you really do need to understand how analysis works. So a key to pupils' ability to understand the problem is the ability to actually analyze the problem, because it really helps with your understanding of the problem.
I'd probably agree with that as well, because
Yeah.
I think if a pupil's stuck on a task, then maybe even asking them just to simply describe it, they'd probably get into a problem with that.
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to look at the problem that obviously that you guys remember. So take your time and read through the task.
Aye, so this is the jumping jacks one. So if there's teachers who have been in the profession for a wee while, you'll probably remember this one. And I think this is where we had these people from Motherwell, Kirkcaldy, all these different places just trying to compete to be the best jumping jacker. So just whilst you're reading over that, I'll try and summarise it as best I can.
Sorry, I'm not sure why this keeps jumping around. Just give me a
No, that's
second.
okay.
Just try and get it back to where it was.
Aye, so just for this slide here, just to try and summarise it. So the data comes in from a file, and the competitor bib titles, they're generated and they're going to be saved to a file. And then the name of the athlete or the athletes who jumped the most jacks is going to be found and then displayed.
Yeah, so basically we're just going to have a look here at some example responses that you may see in this example task, where the pupil has to analyze and describe the task in terms of the inputs, process, and outputs.
Aye, because these will be key for the functional requirements.
Okay, please don't move the sticky notes. I will move them around while we have a discussion. Okay, absolutely. And we basically got some really good suggestions for how to explain these. So let's look at some markers on the coursework, and we can we can have a look to mark them if they're worth a mark or not. So the first one is entry ID, location, contestant name, and number of jumps from file. So for inputs, just this one here.
Aye, so
Where
for
would
that
I
one,
place this?
aye, so for that one there, it probably looks like a good one, but there's maybe one or two issues, because if you look at the coursework, they are suggesting that in those bullet points there should be a full name and a surname. So they've only just mentioned name, and we'll come on to that in a wee bit shortly, but I'd put that underneath the yellow one where you're at, because there's probably a wee bit there that's not quite what we're after at higher level.
Yeah, absolutely, Conor. I mean, this takes us back to really understanding analysis and understanding what the problem is. So obviously it is there that they need forename and surname. So just having contestant name will cause all kinds of problems down the way.
Yeah.
Number 2, entry ID, location, name, and number of jumps. Where would we put this?
That one there's
Inputs.
not probably not as good as the first one. Probably the same issues there with the name, but they've not been specific with the fact that it's coming from a file, and at higher, that's crucial. So for that one there, that's got to go under the red one.
Yeah, absolutely, Conor. In an input at higher level, it has to be clear on not only what the data is, but where is it coming from.
Yep.
All right, so let's have a look at number 3 for inputs. Where do we put this? So we've got entry ID, location, forename, and surname, and number of jumps from file.
Yeah, that one there ticks all the boxes. So that one there would be under the green column for us for the inputs.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so are we number 4?
So yeah, next one's the processes.
So next one is the processes. So we've got create bib value, display the name of the athlete who completed the highest number of jumps, this looks like a pretty good response, but I'm not sure how I am supposed to display the names of the highest jump when I don't know the highest number. So where would we place this?
So again, for that one, I would be putting that under as yellow because the processes at higher, what we spoke about earlier, is that you've got to tell us what algorithms being used to either apply to the data or used to manipulate the data. So we wanted the candidate to be mentioning the fact that they need to find the highest number of jumps first, because that's your standard algorithm.
Yeah, that's right.
So
So
they're the yellow one for that, I think.
yeah, absolutely. Which is a critical part as well.
Mhm.
So okay,
Right,
and
so next one's number 5 then.
okay.
So that's great, and see if I can try and again my eyesight.
I can read it, Connor. It says create bib value, find the most jumps, full name of the athletes who completed highest number of jumps,
Yeah.
and store in a file.
Mhm.
So well, for this one, we are definitely going to, because there is some missing detail again for this, so we are going to place this on the yellow.
Yeah, I think if we're looking at the act of writing a file as probably an output, not a process, so that's probably going to be in the yellow section.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a lot better as it does have the standard algorithm that the number 4 candidate missed.
Mhm.
It is good, but they have added the output of the highest number of jumps to a file.
Yeah, so that would, yeah, the yellow one,
So
unfortunately.
that would be a yellow. Okay, number 6, full name of the athletes who completed highest number of jumps. Obviously, again, looks like there's some key standard algorithm missing here. So no mention of the find max.
Yeah,
So,
so aye, that one's probably going to need to go in the poor one then.
Yep. That's right. Okay, number 7. Okay, so number 7, create bib value, find the most jumps, full name of the athletes who completed the highest number of jumps. Obviously, this candidate knows exactly what they're doing, and they've got everything. Obviously, you can't find who completed the highest number of jumps without finding the most number of jumps.
Aye, that's it. So they've got the algorithms that need to be applied. So yeah, that's a good answer. That's what we're looking for.
Okay, so next we'll look at the outputs.
So number 8, so store entry IDs, bib values, definitely missing detail. It's obviously not telling us that it's been stored in a file. They're not mentioning display of the athletes who did the most. So that's a poor answer. That would be going under the red one. But probably something to pick up on is that maybe another developer, within the real world, they really struggle to understand or to know what that program's got to do in terms of meeting the requirements. So that's a poor one for us.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of so let's have a look at number 9. So number 9, store entry ID and bibs in a file, display name of athlete.
And again, a couple of wee bits of detail there that are missing, unfortunately. So I'd maybe put that under the yellow one.
Yeah, absolutely. This goes on the yellow one. It's a bit better than the previous one, but we don't know which athlete's name we are displaying. It just says,
I think once we compare it to 10,
it's
we'll be
the
able
athlete
to see
with the highest number of jumps. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, and our final one. So this has got store entry ID and bibs in file, display full name of athlete who completes the highest number of jumps.
And that's probably the one that we're looking for in terms of an acceptable answer for the outputs for that example.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Pardon, just a quick question.
Yeah.
See number 5 and number 7.
Yes.
So is number 5 in the yellow column because it also talks about storing it in a file, which should be an output?
Yeah, aye.
Right, okay.
What was the other one there, sorry?
Number 7. What was your question on number 7?
Oh, it's because they're basically the same, except that number 5 mentions storing it in a file.
Yeah, that's right, because that's an output. Yes.
Right, that's sorry.
All right. As Fiona discussed earlier on that. Okay. So we'll move on to the next. If you can just give us a thumbs up if you're okay with how obviously the inputs, process, and outputs, and how obviously pupils lose marks, and so on. Okay. Okay. Moving on.
I will
So-
try. I think we've only got about 5 minutes left.
5 minutes, yeah,
we'll
that's
hopefully
right,
try and
that's fine.
finish this up for you as quick as we can, folks.
Yes. So here we've got 2 program files. We can look at one small example, basically, which emphasizes why analysis is the key to programmers being able to develop the same code. So here we have 2 programs, obviously in Python, one with 5 parallel arrays and the other with 4.
Aye, so for that one there with the names, got to be specific in terms of mentioning the full name and the surname, and we can see
Yeah.
that in these examples here.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, unfortunately, the difference between forename and surname over here can lead to a difference in implementation. And if you've got several developers working on a project, and obviously the parallel arrays are not aligned properly, and this could lead to serious problems.
Yeah, so the one on the right is obviously using the 4 parallel arrays, and they're assuming that it's got to be the full name, but we're also looking for that surname as well. So you would get marks off eventually following on from your analysis if you were to continue using just those 2 merged together when we're looking for what's on the left-hand side.
Yeah, that's right. So again, just taking back to where we started today, this is why analysis and really understanding the crux of the problem is really important. And secondly, it has to be as specific as possible. Okay, that's basically it for evaluation. I'll just hand over to Fiona.
Yes, to me.
Yes. Just give me a second. Hand off. There you go, Fiona.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh. Have I got it? Yes, excellent. So that is us basically just about finished for tonight. We're going to come back to the same questions that we started with. So for our next steps, let's think about the what, the why, and the how in terms of our own classroom practice and what we're going to take away and work on with our pupils.
Yeah, so what you would want to do next, why do you do it, and then how would we do it as well?
Absolutely. Really positive outcome of this workshop, I think, would be if the pupils are better equipped to answer in their assignment and in exam questions about analysis and evaluation stages.
Yeah, so in terms of the what, we'd like you to try and sort of take away the key messages that we've shared, particularly if there's maybe something new or different that you've taught before.
Absolutely. On the why, well, we want our pupils to pick up as many marks, of course, as possible from the questions. And sometimes the reliance on their language skills, more than just their technical skills, can sometimes catch our kids out, can't it?
Yeah. Finally, the how part. So this board that Mark and Tony have made up for us here, please feel free to use that. That's going to be shared. The SQA published coursework tasks and marking instructions as well. Make sure you're making use of them, particularly if it's open book assignments, because there is nothing at all that's going to stop pupils from looking at old marking schemes. So it would be really helpful, I would suggest, that if you're doing a coursework task, that the pupils have got these previous marking schemes available. They can easily access it. And even if they do have maybe problems with the problem that they've got for this year, hopefully those old marking schemes would be able to try and give them a wee bit of a prompt. Hopefully they'll be able to pick up a few marks here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I know I am certainly going to try and come up with something from previous courseworks where even if I don't have time to, give them the whole of the STD section, probably won't, I can at least be able to hone in and focus maybe on the analysis and the evaluation if I've given them, some bits to support that.
Yep. I think there's obviously going to be handouts that will be available to all of you who have attended this evening. But if you
we're
have
going to make a copy of it available, aren't we, of the activities that we've done?
Yeah, but if there are any queries, please feel free to get in touch with. We've got Tony, we've got Mark, we've also got the email address, which is hello@stacks.scot, just for any general issues. But these contact details, we'll share them with you in just a moment, just at the end.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to move that on to our final slide here. As I said at the beginning, this is the first in our series of workshops. The dates are set basically for ongoing. So our next presentation on the STD will be the week beginning the 27th of November. And again, it will be on the Monday evening. It would be great if you can join us. Our colleagues over in Web and Database are kicking off. They're doing tomorrow night and Wednesday night, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
And again, they will be following up the week of the 27th of November. And then in January, the date's there. And again, in February, we'll be doing, so that's the dates there.
Yeah.
Now, if you put these dates in your diary, if possible, keep an eye out on the social media. Stacks will be posting reminders. And obviously, you'll get the links sent out to you if you sign up for that. Because by that point, when we get to February, we will be ready for the full-on 2024 coursework, won't we?
Yeah, I think we'll probably have specific focuses for each of these remaining workshops. They've still to be decided, but they'll be focusing on topics that maybe the course reports have highlighted, but they'll also be looking at things that maybe the tutors who teach in Mark will maybe identify things that we would say would probably be most challenging. But like the computing science course itself, the main topic, the biggest topic is STD. So even though there are going to be maybe your focuses on databases and web, there's probably going to be a general focus on the STD simply because it is our biggest topic. But just a thank you to everybody who's came along and participated tonight. You've given up your free time. Hopefully we'll see you at the next round of the workshops, and fingers crossed you've found it useful and you've found it practical as well.
Absolutely. If I could just ask you, there's a short Google survey. If I could ask you to fill that in, if you wouldn't mind. I think the link is going to be posted up in the Google chat. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's also on the slide if you just click on the link there as well.
Yes.
Survey
Yeah,
link.
just down the bottom there.
Yeah. Well pointed out, Lucinda. Yep, down at the bottom. We would really appreciate it if you don't mind taking a couple of minutes. It's very short. Just to fill that in for us, that would be great. So this concludes our meeting here. We're going to finish up on the Miro board. Feel free
sorry, Fiona, just to jump in there. Mark, have you got something to say about Replit?
Sorry, can you press the button? Can you press the unmute button fast enough? For anyone who uses Replit and found it just before the October holidays, or perhaps even during your October holidays, and the AI feature got enabled. Obviously a real concern for things like coursework and everything else. Replit, Stacks and a few other people have been in touch, and Replit replied saying that we're hoping, fingers crossed, that they're going to be allowing in the Team for Edu kind of scenario to disable the AI thing. So fingers crossed that kind of appears in the next week or two. So fingers crossed that gets sorted out for us all.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks for that,
Mark.
Mark. That's really useful. So yeah, once more, thanks to everybody. Good to have you on board tonight, and looking forward to the next one. But feel free to stay around, join us in the Google chat.
Yeah, we'll be in the chat. I think there's a couple of questions that have been added in there already, so we'll feel free to sort of stay behind and discuss them with you. But again, thanks to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, thanks everyone.